McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.
We heard in the news today that Sinn Féin are calling for a, this is at their Ardesh yesterday. Did you see that? They did. Oh, Jane has the music. No, it's okay, Jane. No, it's okay, Jane. Don't. All these Ardeshes are like a circus, aren't they, really? Go on, Jane. Go on. You're dying to do it. Go on. You're dying to do it. Go on. Off you go. No, the circus. The circus. That's not the one I wanted. Well, actually, leave that for a second. Right, leave that just a second. This is David Gray, okay? Now, listen to the first two lines, all right? I'll come back to the circus in a second. Right, here we go. This year's love, Daedalus.
This year's love, it last.
Yeah, he got Daedalus. Okay, you knock it off now. You thought it was in Italy. This year's love is in Italy. I always thought for years when I hear that song, it's this year's love and Daedalus. That's all, because that's what he says. He goes Daedalus. Right, where's the clown music? I know. Oh, there it is. There. So all these Ardeshes, as you know, they're like a circus. The last one, of course, the Labour Party promised to build 1 million houses, but you might as well say 10 million. Because there is no way you're going to build 1 million houses. I mean, Sinn Féin said 120,000 houses or something go back a while ago, and the government were saying 80,000. Sure, Labour might as well come in and say 1 million. I'll do 5 million. Hence, the Labour Party are not really around much anymore these days, are they? Anyway, thank you, Jane. You killed the music. On a more serious note, on a very serious note, because rent is a serious thorn on most people's side. We heard the news today that Sinn Féin is calling for a 3-year ban on rent increases. According to the latest data from daft.ie, the average nationwide rent is just over €1,800 a month, while the average rent in Dublin is more than €2,300 a month. Wow. When you consider people on a minimum wage are taking home, on average, around $1,600 a month, well, that is all of their money on rent. And of course, people on a minimum wage will get closer to €1,800 a month from start of 2024 once the minimum wage increases to $1,270. They say you should never be spending any more than 30% of your gross income on your accommodation. That's the rule by most professional financiers. No more than 33%, a third. Interestingly, areas outside the capital saw the biggest increase. In Galway and Limerick, they were up 16% in the past year, up to about 1,900. Did you ever think you'd see the day that you'd pay €1,900 for a house in Galway or Limerick? Never did you think you would see that. The trend is unlikely to change with the increase to our population, and let's face it, we're not building houses quick enough. So, does Sinn Féin have a point? Do we need to freeze the rents now while the address of supplier is an issue? Or are we punishing landlords for a problem not of their making? What do you think? So here's my thoughts on it, if you want them. It's a free market. It's just a free market. And what the government are doing blindly is they're blaming landlords for the mess that they've created. You cannot do that. Let's say, for example, as we know, RTE is in crisis. I'll talk about that later on. They're shedding millions. And now they're suggesting letting staff go, which is not the answer. Selling 2FM would be part of the answer. But how now? We'll get to that later. But the problem is, so how would it be if RTE were losing money and the government said, all right, classic hits, we need you to pay money, we need Red FM to pay money, we need Stay FM to pay money, we need News Talk to pay money to save RTE. No, it's your fault. So we're gonna freeze how much money you can make while RTE gets some money. No, you can't do that. It's a free market. We live in this is not a communist or socialist society. We live in a free market. So you can't freeze rents. Well, I personally don't believe you can, but some people will agree that you can. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, by the way, because I'm interested in the other side of the argument. Let me know what you think. The number is 087 188 0008. Would you agree with freezing rent prices for 3 years? That's Sinn Féin's suggestion. Would you agree with it? Let me go to Patrick. Patrick, hi. How you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Hello.
Nice.
Hi.
Nice to
Hello.
talk to you.
Nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Patrick, what's your thoughts?
Personally, like, I'm a lad that grew up out in the countryside and then moving up to Dublin just seemed the most logical thing while attending college. I got lucky myself, I know, with the place that I got with rent being a close friend of mine. His family owning the apartment I rent it out of now. And it's not that expensive. It's a two-bedroom, two-bathroom, and me and another lad share a room. It's only $450 a month. But then I know when I was looking for apartments and stuff like that, I was seeing the guts of one tiny room that'd be about 10 foot by 8 foot was going for like £1,200 a month.
Yeah.
And I know it's not just the landlords increasing the prices on like rent and all that, but I know there is a lot of people, and it's not. I don't want to generalize all landlords. It is a small market of landlords that are
Gouging.
seeing the increase. And
Yeah,
just
they're
trying to
gouging. as
gouge
they
out
call it.
of it.
Yeah.
And I know a bunch of other colleges put out awareness for this, and they are starting to just get in connections with other like landlords and that. I think IDT posted something a while ago about messaging them if one of the landlords that they have connections with increases their prices, like they'll more or less like black market them or like just exclude them off their listing to make sure that students are getting the best deals for
Yeah.
their price, you know.
Do you believe there should be a freeze, a price freeze?
Personally, I do think there should be a price freeze, like at least for the next few, like a year or two, to like try and help balance out the kind of market a wee bit, because, like I said, this one of these places I was looking for was out towards the Kildare, nowhere near Dublin, and it was ridiculously priced, whereas places, the closer you get towards Dublin, the more expensive it gets, basically. But I understand that there is like an increase on like apartment complexes being built and stuff like that.
See, I
which
do
is
understand
kind of
from a
helping.
landlord's point of view, there's an increase in cost.
Oh, yeah.
Maintaining a property is more expensive. And the majority of landlords have a mortgage and their interest rates have gone up. Because
Yeah.
most landlords are not big organisations. They're usually just an individual who has left a house in a will or something like that, right? So they're called incidental landlords. The danger is if you freeze prices and they're not allowed to put them up, they'll step out of the market. That could then have a snowball effect that if they step out of the market, then the supply and demand will even get higher and the prices will go up more in 3 years' time when they're allowed to put them up. So what will happen is instead of your property going from, say, 1,500 to 2 grand or to 2 grand over a period of 3 years, it'll just jump in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's still going to
Oh,
happen,
completely. Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and we'll lose and I think we'll lose landlords. That's the problem.
No, like that's it. It is a difficult thing to kind of break, well, not break down, but to think in the long run. I
Yeah.
know there is an increase of, what's it called? It's like shared housing, so like families will
Yeah.
like invite students in, which I think is great,
Yeah.
and I want more of that. I know I want more of that because like I wasn't even aware of that out where I was until I moved up to Dublin. I started hearing students doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a very wide advertised thing I'm learning.
Yeah, but the only danger of the kind of room renting from a private house is of course there's no legislation there to protect you, so that your landlord is somebody who owns the house and lives in the house, so they can turn around to you at any stage and say get out. So you don't really have protections in those situations, you know. So I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good idea. The 14,000 the government allow to tax free for them to rent rooms out to students is a good idea. But again, I think all of these things are just plasters on the bucket. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, the hole in the bucket is the housing crisis, which was created by the government.
Yes.
You know, and I just find all of these things as an easy way of the government passing the blame over to somebody else. You know, the landlord of these bad people, you know, who are overcharging people. But if there was enough houses and the government had been building social housing over the last 20 years like they were supposed to be, the landlords wouldn't be charging what they're charging because there'd be no supply issue.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's completely right. You are completely. That is, it's right. It's right to me anyway. It sounds
Yeah.
about right. Because when you were talking earlier, I heard you saying about the promise about building the million houses and the 100,000 houses and 80,000.
Yeah.
I remember reading about that, and then never hearing about it again.
No, you won't
It was
hear
only
about
when
it
you
again
said that
either.
I heard it.
They're false promises. That's why you won't hear about it again.
Mm.
Stay there, Patrick. Let me go to Neve as well. Neve, hi, how are you?
Hi, Niall. How are you?
I'm good, Neve. You heard Patrick. You know, he's a student, and students, of course, are feeling the brunt of this as well because they need somewhere to
they are, of
stay.
course, yeah.
When they're in college. You know?
And most colleges are in sort of the greater Dublin area or around cities.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Students are screwed, because they can't choose where they live. They have to live near where they're getting their lectures.
Yeah.
If you're in college in DCU, you can't live in Cork.
No, and
Just
you
because
and you
the
also
housing-
need to live somewhere that's not too far away. You don't want to be getting public transport because then you might as well be living at home. So in other words,
Exactly, and they have to work. 90% of these students, they work damn hard to pay their rent.
Yeah.
They're working maybe sometimes 2 jobs, restaurants, whatever.
Yeah.
So I understand. I do. I understand completely where Patrick's coming from. Personally, much and all, as a private renter, I'd love it if they couldn't put up our rent, but I'd rather they didn't do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I am worried enough about my landlord selling without giving them it a bit on a spoon.
Yeah.
Because as you said, look, at the end of the day, this is not my home. I am renting it from somebody else who owns this and can do what they like with it.
Yeah.
It's theirs. It's not mine. Much and all as I love it and I make it my own, it's not. So unfortunately,
I never heard them suggesting a mortgage freeze, by the way. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They don't tell the banks you can't put up the mortgages for the next 3 years.
Exactly. And you know what? The only way this would work, if they want to do it, is they're going to have to do it in conjunction with an eviction ban. Because
you've heard Sinn Féin say that before, by the way. Eoin Bryn has suggested the eviction ban before, by the way.
You can't do that either.
No, you
it's
can't.
not fair. Look, the eviction ban, and again, it's probably going to sound strange because I'm like, I've got skin in the game. I am a private renter. And the eviction ban was fine for what it was needed for. But there is no crisis, besides the housing crisis, there's no health crisis at the moment. We can move around, we can, go here and there. But Dublin maybe would be slightly different. But what terrifies me is that, for the entire of Gorey, which is a big, big town, there's 3 houses available, and all of them are over €1,800 for a 3-bed.
But what do we expect when we're not building houses, or we haven't been, and we've just increased the population, and with the population over the last 10 years has increased, by the last 15 years by 1 million people. What do we expect?
Right at the end of my garden, obviously there's a wall.
I thought you were going to say there's a family living. Never go on.
No. If I could get away with it, I'd have them there.
There's a family. In the bushes.
They're lovely people. They're lovely people.
We
They
feed
don't
them
come
every
into the
day.
house.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when we can afford it now, let's not push it. But there's a wall, right? Behind the wall, there's a very big field. And in in March of this year, the field was completely cleared. It was overgrown, right?
Yeah.
For 100 houses.
Yeah.
Now the field is overgrown again.
Right.
And they're going to have to come back and redo it. They haven't touched it.
Yeah.
So now it's not going to help me because it's for council houses and I'm not eligible to be on the list. But it would help somebody, and it might take somebody out of a HAP house that could be then private rented again.
But here's the thing: you're not eligible to be on the housing list because you earn over. Well, you or your partner, between the two of you, earn over 34,000 or whatever it is to be on the housing list, right? And the thing about it is, and I don't know your business, Niamh, but I'm assuming you're not earning a great lot of money over 34,000.
No.
No, and by the time you pay your rent and everything else and pay your bills, you're skint. But what I can't,
we're poor.
Well, I think we're all poor, aren't we? Really? I mean, I think what I find outrageous is that we're spending. I don't know if you've ever worked it out. What percentage of your income is going in your rent?
Oh yeah, I have, and I did it once, and I swore I'd never do it again because it depressed me for a week. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's little less than a week now. It will be about a third.
Okay, Well, that's not too bad, by the way, because when you
Well,
when
we're
you look at the
lucky
figures
because
around
of
the
where we
country,
are, yeah.
when you look at the figures around the country, when we're looking at 2,300 rent in Dublin, that means
God.
if we're to go by the rule that you shouldn't be spending more than a third, we're assuming people in Dublin earn over $6,000 a month, so they don't.
Exactly.
You know
No,
what I
they're
mean?
not.
So, well, actually,
And
more.
I don't know how
yeah.
they do it because, like, I panic every month that it's going to get paid, you know, because it's the only thing that I will put above everything else.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if the TV goes off. I don't care if we lose broadband for a day because I couldn't afford the bill. I can live with that.
Yeah.
But don't feck up my roof, you know, because I'm terrified. Because there's nothing here. Like, there's literally nothing here. And they shouldn't be charging nearly $2,000 for a house outside Dublin, Gorey. It's like...
No, I know, but I don't know your landlord. I don't know his circumstances.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not my rent. Thank
No,
God.
no, okay.
But that's what they're charging now.
But here's the thing: many landlords have mortgages.
now.
Many have mortgages. You know, and they've seen a huge increase in those mortgages over the last 2 years, and the increase in taxes, etc., over the last 10 years. You know, they got a bit of relief this time around in the budget. Wasn't very much, mind you. But stay there for a second, Eve. Let me go to Dave. Dave, hi. How are you?
What's crack?
How you doing, Dave? Freeze on rents. Is it a good idea?
I'm kind of conflicted on this one because, on the one hand, there are people out there paying exorbitant rents for living in a dog box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about like a nice 3-bed semi with a decent garden and driveway for 2 cars. I'm literally talking about something that, you know, a couple of decades ago was a cow shed.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not fair to be charging someone €1,000, €1,500 a month because you know you're going to get it. Because if someone doesn't pay it, there's a line of people out the door who will pay it. Now, I also understand the argument from the side of landlords because I'm not one of those people as well who thinks all landlords are these, you know, mustache twirling villains with top hats and capes. You know,
That's the way people see them, by the way. That's the way people, when you say the word landlord, they envisage that. The child catcher.
Yeah, but if you know what I mean? Like you expect them to be stepping straight out of an old silent movie, and you know they're in black and white. But no, I don't know, and a lot of people bought a second house during the Celtic Tiger because they were like, you know what, we're all making loads of money. I'll buy a house and I'll sell it someday and I can retire and live the good life. There's nothing wrong with that. I have absolutely nothing wrong with that. I really don't. If that's what you want to do, fucking more power to you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we're living in a country where the wages haven't risen really since the last recession, but the price of everything has gone.
I'm on less money now than I was on in 2002.
Which is insane. You know, that's mental, and everything else has gone up. But like, what I would say is, what they should do first of all, before they even talk about rent freezes, is if you're a landlord, because there's a guy who works for me, he said he has a second house. He says the money he gets in rent from that second house, it's not like it's a separate tax band. It goes on top of what he makes every week, and then the revenue just screws him for, right? That's what needs to be sorted out first and foremost. If you're a landlord, you should have, I don't know, maybe put you into a different tax bracket and say, right, this is the money you make from your job. This is the money you make from renting out your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's not screw you. So we can have more people deciding, geez, do you know what? I've got an extra few pounds. I'll buy a rental property, you know, so we can get more landlords into it. But I kind of agree with it.
But that's not really the answer, is it? Because, as you rightly said, Niamh's landlord, I don't know who he is or who she is, but more than likely is paying 41 cents in the euro with every penny that Niamh gives him, right? Okay, so that's not on. That's not viable in the current market, in the current situation we're in at the moment. That's just not viable because you're right, that's not going to encourage people into the business. But here's the thing, we shouldn't be encouraging landlords. We should be building houses. We're not meant to be relying on the private market.
No, that's it. You see, I would agree with a rent freeze if they're doing it in tandem with, right, we're going to stick a rent freeze, but maybe if things raise with the cost of inflation, you can up your rent a little bit. You know what I mean? But you're not going to, because I know people who are like living in a house for, 6, 7, 8 years, and landlord goes, lads, I know you're paying €1,000 a month, but now we're going to be paying €1,800 a month, and if you don't like it, fuck off. That needs, we need to do something to tackle that.
And I agree with you in a moral sense. But if that landlord can get 1,800 and it's a free market, and we're not living in a communist or socialist society, and it's a free market, well then why not? Like if I buy a car, tomorrow, and 2 years later I buy it for 10 grand, and 2 years later some arsehole wants to give me 18,000 for it, and I just bought it for 10 2 years previous. Should I not be allowed to sell it to them? Of course I should. It's a free market.
No, of course you should. And look, I can't talk. I was making fire pits there during COVID, and like they were costing me, my overheads were 12 quid, and I was selling them for anywhere from 160 up to 200 euros.
Great stuff.
You know what I mean?
Free market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So I'm not complaining there. I just think at the moment with the way we are,
But you got to think of it like this. If it was the government's job to build fire pits for everybody, right, that'd be their job to provide those fire pits. So you wouldn't really have that market unless people wanted a luxury fire pit or a better fire pit.
Yeah.
So that would probably cost you more to build.
Which I could make for them. No,
if anyone's interested, Dave's Fire Pits, you can go online, davesfirepits.ie. Okay, so no, I'm joking.
There you go. Yeah, but no, I know it's like you kind of have to separate it from like this is the moral thing we all feel we should be doing, but at the same time, it's your house, you bought it, you're paying a mortgage, you should also be allowed to do whatever the fuck you like with it as well. It's a weird kind of a catch-22. I mean, even if we could say, right, if you're a private renter and you're kind of like say the accidental landlord, as they like to call it. If you're that kind of person, you're exempt from it. But if you're part of a vulture fund or some,
everybody agrees the vulture funds need to be paying more tax because they're getting away with low corporation tax, right? They're not paying tax.
They're not even paying. They're not even paying capital gains tax as well.
No,
you know what I mean?
All they're paying is a low corporation tax for being in the country in the first place. So that's really nothing, okay? So they're getting away with murder. So we need to change legislation laws around that. That's a different kettle of fish. But here you go. This is a little bit of an urban myth about the vulture funds. Everyone talks about the big, these big hedge companies that come into the country and buy up loads of property. In the big scheme of things, they don't own very much property. The majority of properties in this country are just, as you said, incidental landlords. They're just the ones that have the properties. No. And as Niamh rightly said, and I think she would agree, if you put a price freeze in, or if you put some sort of eviction ban in for the next 4 or 5 years, which is probably going to be the next step that Sinn Féin will take, you're going to discourage them from staying in the market.
No, yeah, they're going to be like, they're going to be like Bertie Ahern when he knew his political career was over. They're going to be jumping like rats off a sinking ship. No, and it is, and I do get it. And look, the reason Sinn Féin are floating this around now is because there's, like whenever there's an election there, it's like blood in the water to sharks. Like they're throwing out these, like, we're going to bring in an eviction ban. We're going to bring in a rent freeze because it sounds sexy, and most people, can see past their nose nowadays. So they're going to be like, well, I'm going to vote for them. When they should be saying, what we're going to do is we're going to start building more houses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's Niamh. She's a renter. She's not going to vote for them on the strength of this idea. Are you, Niamh?
No. I think, I agree with a lot of what Dave is saying. But I think if they want to do something constructive for people like me, right, when you're paying rent and you're paying all the bills and you're not on a fantastic wage, right, if they could bring in something that could mean that, like, I have been renting privately for the last nearly 24 years. I have never, ever been late. I've never been evicted. I've never had an issue. Why can't they bring in something that I can go to the bank with my history of my rent and say, if I can do this with this,
give me a mortgage.
I can do your mortgage. What I can't do right now, because we can't afford it, is get 60 grand together for a bloody deposit. But I can certainly, if my mortgage is going to be less than what we're paying in rent, which in some cases it is, it would be down here for sure.
Yeah,
I can afford that.
Yeah.
So instead of these populist, stupid, second, pleading to the masses ideas that they throw out, oh, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you. I'd love it if they said, we're going to approach the banks for you. And we're going to get this changed, and we're going to make it so that more people can buy a house, because I'll never get a council house. And at this stage, I'll never get my own home. So if they change that, I'd vote for them.
Yeah.
I'd vote for them tomorrow.
And you know what? The same goes with affordable housing. And a mate of mine bought a house years ago with the shared ownership scheme, where the government pay half the mortgage, you pay the other, and then eventually when you're finished paying, you have to pay back the government, which is interest free. And I think those kind of schemes are far better off, Dave. Those kind of doing those kind of things, because that then encourages builders to build more houses because they know they'll sell them quicker anyway. So, I mean, those kind of things work better than price freezes and eviction bans and all this. Because all you're doing there is blaming the landlords for the mess the government are making.
And only kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, you see, like why we don't have more people who go into politics like Niamh, people who actually talk sense, you know what I mean? But and again, we see the problem with that kind of stuff is that requires hard work. That requires them to do something other than stand on a podium and blame the other people for all your problems. You know, it's a lot easier to say, well, we're going to freeze rent. Then what are you going to do after that? Actually, we don't know. We might build a few houses. No.
See, but you couldn't let Niamh into politics because, see, then you have to look at the extreme because Niamh would start a row over sugar-free beans. So you could.
I'd be right there with you. Yeah, fuck
Nobody would miss them.
She had a row with her husband one night for days over the fact that he brought home a tin of sugar-free beans.
I didn't even know there was
David
sugar in
disagrees with
these.
me, so he. Dave is now my tarnished. Okay, so I'll just say.
Yeah, well, by mistake, by the way, we did buy sugar-free ketchup. Heinz, you know the Heinz ketchup. We bought the sugar-free one.
L.
Oh, yeah, not good at all. It doesn't taste the same. Well, hang on, let me go to Billy. Billy, hi, how are you?
Niall, I'm going to start off by saying something very controversial.
What about sugar-free ketchup?
If you can get it, Hellman's ketchup over Heinz.
Oh no, you can't beat Heinz.
Oh, I'm telling you.
I couldn't touch anything but Heinz.
I was like you at one stage, but then I had Hellman. Changed my life.
Changed your life. It's the same in
Anyway.
Worcestershire sauce. I can only use Goodall's. Has to be Goodall's. None of this Lee Perrins nonsense.
So anyway, back to the serious matters now.
Yes.
This is, again,
These,
Sinn
by the way,
Féin
sorry,
lying-
Billy, they are serious matters. Can I just point out?
Oh, they are. But, we won't fight over ketchup now. We might fight over political policy. But look, Sinn Féin are just flying kites again, trying to appeal. I just did a quick look up. Have you heard of a website called Inside Airbnb?
No, I haven't.
Right, type it in there and type in Dublin. And what you'll find in Dublin at the moment, right now tonight, there are 8,500 properties for rent on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Right? 4,500 of those properties are full homes or apartments. And then if you look at it, it'll give a breakdown of the first name of the renters. So there's some fella called Paul who has 80 properties for rent on Airbnb. Right. So Paul is making a mint because, Dublin is very expensive on Airbnb. Could be making €300 a night per property. So he is coining it. Now, I don't know.
Yeah, but
why
you can be
Darren
sure Paul is a major company. Paul is not an individual.
But no, Paul is an individual, you see, now. This is the thing with Airbnb. Airbnb, you're meant to deal with the individual.
I'm looking here, 8,724 properties, yeah.
Exactly. And how many are full apartments or full houses? I think it's 4,500. And you think we have 12,000 people in long-term homelessness in this country, and you probably have, between kids and parents, you probably have enough on Airbnb in Dublin tonight to solve our homelessness crisis.
Yeah, Niall and Gavin, by the way, have 75 properties.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Now, this thing with landlords, freezing rent is going to, we've tried it. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the current government put in a rent freeze and they put in an eviction ban. And what happened? Landlords started selling up and leaving the market. Because once the landlord starts to think they're losing control of their property, they will get out because they're afraid of what's going to happen next. It's a slippery slope. So we've had this experiment before. The IMF came out last week and they said the only way out of a housing crisis is to build. Not the rent controls, none of that. Because once you build, the demand will go down, the cost of rent will go down substantially because of that. So building is the only real way out of this. So, I think really if you put in a rent freeze, if you put in an eviction ban, you will make the problem worse. And
sorry for interrupting you, but there's 10 properties here in the building I'm in at the moment on Airbnb available. And that's we're in Castle Forbes Road, so there's an apartment complex. We're part of the apartment complex's offices at the bottom, and there's 10 properties available Airbnb.
Now, I remember going on Daft at one stage. You know that big building down at the end of the quays, on the south side of the quays?
Yeah.
Capital Dock, I think is what it's called. And at one stage, it was 90% vacant, but it was up on Daft, and some of the rooms in there for €4,000, and they kept it vacant because they wanted to keep the rents artificially high. They would only rent to people willing to pay that. Like there's the housing crisis can be fixed, you know, but no one seems to be willing to do the hard work and piss off the companies that are going to have to piss
Now,
off.
to be fair, a lot of the Airbnb is done for short-term lets, right? So for holiday makers.
and it's
And
done-
I'm
it's
looking,
done
say,
for-
one of the apartments in this building, I'm just looking here at the moment. Thanks for this site, by the way. It's an interesting site. 244 a night for an apartment here in Castle Forbes.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean,
244. Like you're going to make a month's rent in a week.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's fleecing the situation.
But they're only doing well because hotels are full and hotels are fleecing people as well. So they're only doing well because of that as well.
Why are hotels full now?
Well, we know why
Because
hotels are full.
you're housing. There's two reasons. You're housing the homeless in hotels. You're
Mm-hmm.
having kids growing up in hotels, and also there's the refugees that have come in from elsewhere that you're housing.
40%
So
of
we-
hotel accommodation at the moment is being used up for accommodation. 40%.
Yeah. So we've got this whole thing backwards. We're using our hotel.
But what I'm trying to say, sorry for interrupting you, Billy, but what I keep saying to Niamh and Dave, and I've been saying it for the last half an hour, is what we're doing essentially is blaming landlords for the mess that we're in by saying, you know, listen, we're going to freeze rents.
But
Not their fault.
the government, successive governments, not the current government, successive governments. As I said to you before in the show, now, this all started back in the 90s when the governments of the day, which I believe was a Fianna Fáil government, decided to sell off the social housing stock because they did not want to hire into the local authorities, the borough councils and the corporations to maintain that stock. So they sold it off for next to nothing. And I think you said your parents bought their house. I know my grandparents bought their house for next to nothing. And those houses have been sold on.
So my parents bought their house.
Yeah, my parents bought theirs, and my father died and left it to me, and I sold it for 190,000. But I didn't. Me and my sister did for 190 grand, and they paid 1,600 for it. So we made money out of the state's loss.
Exactly. If you go back to the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s, places like Coolock, Crumlin, Drimnagh were built by the local authority as a social housing stock. They are all now in private ownership, and they will fetch a pretty penny because the Lewis goes by some of them.
Absolutely.
And it's just we've caused this issue ourselves.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.